The Indominus rex, the hybridized dinosaur that starred in Jurassic World, made to be a monster by Dr. Henry Wu, this theropod dominated the island of Isla Nublar along with every single dinosaur and person within it. But what if we clone the Indominus rex with the exact same memories until the Mosasaur, and then tossed it into multiple time periods throughout the Mesozoic era? These periods of course being the Triassic, Jurassic and Cretaceous. Does the untamable king, or more accurately queen, have what it takes to survive? Well, let's figure that out. G'day everybody, I'm your host answering the question of if the Indominus rex could survive in the Mesozoic. As always, don't forget to like and subscribe, and let us waste no more time to jump into this. First, we need to start off with what exactly the Indominus rex is. Well, the Indominus rex is made up of a number of different prehistoric and modern day organisms. Its main DNA corporation included the Tyrannosaurus rex, Velociraptor, and Giganotosaurus, but it also includes Carnotaurus, Majungasaurus, Rugops, Therizinosaurus, Deinosuchus, other abelisaurs, cuttlefish, pit viper, and tree frog DNA. And I'm gonna be honest, there's probably a whole lot more into that, but that's the main ones that I found. Standing at around 5.5 meters or 18 feet tall, measuring around 13 meters or 42 feet in length, and scaled in at a weight of 8 tons, this was undoubtedly a giant, with unusually long and powerful arms alongside with a jaw that could open at an angle of over 90 degrees, and we have one unique dinosaur. Though I have to say one of the most unique abilities of this theropod has to be the fact that it can effectively camouflage with its environment. This was of course derived from cuttlefish DNA. Not only does it allow the Indominus rex to change color, but also texture of its skin to better blend in with its surroundings. Tree frog DNA also grants it the ability to regulate body temperature, allowing it to evade infrared detection, altogether making it a perfect ambush predator. It also possesses high intelligence as it was able to problem solve, outsmart humans, and was even seen remembering and removing its own tracking device. I mean, it was all the way on the other side of the park, and it still managed to know where everybody was at and went straight for them. Despite its massive size, the I.rex could still move at impressive speeds, reaching up to 48 kilometers per hour or 30 miles per hour. It also comes packed with unmatched levels of aggression, with the strength to take down even the largest dinosaurs on the island, including herbivores like the Brachiosaurus, as well as apex predators like Ingens rexi. Behaviorally speaking, the Indominus is unpredictable at best, showing to be highly aggressive to almost every single organism on Isla Nublar. However, I can't say for sure if it would remain like that the entire time it would be surviving in these situations, as it was clearly stated that she was still figuring out her placement in the food chain, so possibly over time she would adapt and then end up becoming more placid. Again though, hybrid nature, can't say for sure. But let us get started by releasing the Indominus rex in South America during the late Triassic period. The late Triassic paleo environment would have had a warm, seasonally variable climate with temperatures averaging around 25 degrees Celsius. The landscape would feature a mix of rivers and lakes with frequent changes in water levels, creating a dynamic terrain of sandstone, siltstone, and mudstone. This would undoubtedly be the most different and difficult environment for the Indominus rex to adapt to, as it was made to be more used to tropical regions. Still though, it wouldn't be impossible, and I'd give her a 7 out of 10. As for prey, well, I'm gonna be honest. Most available things in the late Triassic would be far too small to satiate the hunger of such a massive predator. Many of the herbivores present at the time were merely a snack in comparison to the size of the Indom, and it would probably not even be worth taking down. Among these smaller herbivores and omnivores included Xerodon and Eoraptor. Most of these potential prey items, though abundant, would barely provide any sort of food for something like the Indominus, so I could imagine it going by ignoring it unless it was having a particularly bad day. That being said, back in this time there were still two herbivores that stand out as primary prey options for our contestant. The first is Ischigualastia, a large Dicidodon that would have measured around 3.5 meters or 11 feet in length, and it could have weighed up to a ton. While still much smaller than the Indominus rex, at least it had some sort of meat on its bones for it to eat. The more desirable and undoubtedly preferred prey option, or better known as a victim for the Indominus rex, would be Ingentia. This was a large sauropod morph that measured between 7.9 to 10 meters or 26 to 33 feet in length. It was also around the same weight as the Indom, weighing anywhere between 8 to 11 tons. This would make it a highly rewarding prey option, and although its size may have assisted it in defending itself from many predators of its own time, it lacks the significant size advantage required to deter something as aggressive as the Indominus rex. In the end, the greatest challenge for the Indominus rex would not actually be the process of hunting these herbivores, but rather finding enough food to sustain itself in a time where prey items were relatively scarce and much smaller in comparison. Because of the lacking prey items to accommodate its size and bloodlust, I have to give the Indominus Rex a surprisingly low score of 6 out of 10. Moving on, I don't think it's any surprise that even the most powerful predators of the time would be severely outmatched in every single aspect by the introduction of this new hybrid. Even combined, the predators of the late Triassic, including Herrerasaurus, Saurosuchus, and Prestosuchus, would stand no chance against the Indominus Rex. These predators' weights range from 200 to 700 kilograms or 440 to 1,543 pounds. Then we have Basilosuchus, the largest rheasuchid, which could measure 6 to 10 meters or 19 to 33 feet in length and weigh around 1.3 to 3 tons. And as cool as it is, and don't get me wrong, this is one of the coolest prehistoric creatures that ever existed, it still ultimately falls short in any confrontation. Despite its much larger size compared to other competitors of its time, the Indominus Rex is not only many times heavier, but beats it in every single category by significant margin, cementing itself as the new apex predator of the ecosystem. And well, there's no need to sugarcoat reality, the Indominus Rex would dominate every predator, easily giving it a 10 out of 10 for dealing with competitors. In this scenario, the Indominus Rex would initially fall back on its aggressive nature to assert itself over its own territory. However, I believe that she would be smart enough to quickly realize that with the limited availability of sizable prey like Ingentia and Ischigualastia, she would likely shift her strategy. To be honest, I think that within this time period, the Indominus Rex would become less aggressive after the first few weeks of introduction. I think they should be smart enough to understand that it's not a great idea to blindly demolish everything in her path, but rather to selectively hunt. Maybe this happens after a food shortage or something of the sorts. To ensure her own survival, the Indominus Rex might resort to eradicating every single competitor in the area, such as Herrerasaurus and Basilosuchus. Not only would this provide some sort of extra food, but would also go on to secure the dwindling prey supplies of omnivores and herbivores. I imagine as time goes by, herbivores would tend to be pushed further out into different areas entirely, causing the Indominus Rex to ditch her territory in pursuit of other prey options, although this may be difficult after all the roaring that she does, which, yeah, in real life if that happened, every herbivore would know to get out of the area. Overall though, I would rate her survival score a solid 7.6 out of 10, with the major disadvantage being a lack of sizable prey options. With the Indominus' success, we now move on to the Jurassic. Not only do we move time periods, but locations. We have moved from South America to Europe, more specifically into current day Portugal. During the Jurassic period in what is now known as Portugal, there was a lush coastal environment dominated by river systems, floodplains, and dense forests. The formation that we're basing this off indicates a warm and humid environment with an abundance of plant life, including cycads, ferns, and conifers. This all would have supported a diverse ecosystem of dinosaurs. Although still having dry seasons, this would still be a much better match for our hybrid and hence providing it a score of 8.5 out of 10. Smaller herbivores in this formation such as Camptosaurus, Philodon, and Dryosaurus would likely serve as opportunistic prey for the Indominus Rex. While swift and agile, these smaller dinosaurs would be vulnerable to ambush tactics, where the Indominus Rex could use its camouflage to get close to the prey before catching them off guard, but again, they would not be overly fulfilling. Dracopelta, a smaller, heavily armored ankylosaurid, was truly built for defense. However, despite its thick protective plating, it lacked size, only reaching around 3 meters or 9.9 feet in length and a weight of around 300 kilograms or 600 pounds. Dracopelta would be in the weird situation of having armor but not enough actual size to keep it safe. We also have to remember that the Indominus Rex was able to pierce the gyrosphere's glass, which was said to be able to resist 50 caliber gunfire, which I don't know, good luck Dracopelta. Larger herbivores like the Stegosaurids Descentrurus and Stegosaurus itself posed more of a challenge. Descentrurus and Stegosaurus were both giants. The former came in at around 8 meters or 26 feet long and 7 tons in weight, while Stegosaurus was around 7 meters or 23 feet long and clocked in at a weight of 4 tons. Obviously, their main defense included their backplates, which while not technically armor, still acted as a natural covering for them over their back. We also can't forget about their spiked tail, also known as a thagomizer. This could have been used to deter predators away with life-threatening injuries. While they lacked the speed to escape the Indominus Rex, their thagomizers could deliver some damage if it got too close. Although they could injure the Indominus Rex, I see it more so as if they get their thagomizers inside the Indominus Rex, it's going to be difficult for them to get out, causing them to be stuck in close quarters with a now angry hybrid. Finally, we have one of the largest herbivores in today's video, this being Lacertidon, a colossal sauropod. Standing at a high 11 meters or 36 feet, reaching a long 25 meters or 82 feet, and weighing an impressive 30 tons, Lacertidon would be an imposing challenge for every naturally occurring predator. However, the Indominus rex is not naturally occurring. See, this one is an interesting toss-up, as the Indominus rex was shown taking down sauropods before, but the sauropods in the Jurassic series sort of don't really do anything. They seem more like giant chow than an actual creature that can do some damage. Meanwhile, the real-life counterparts were putting in work and would be pretty much resistant to all predation, and reality does say that if an Indominus rex got too close to a dinosaur that weighed over 3 times as heavy as it, then it's not going to go too well and it might just get stomped. Still though, the Indominus rex gets an upgrade from the prey options of the Triassic as they were far larger, with the most likely threat being sauropods, which you could still arguably take down, hence giving it a score of 9 out of 10. This ecosystem also hosted a variety of smaller predators such as Ceratosaurus and Lacervenator. While good in their own niches, would be vastly outmatched by the Indominus rex. It would be best for these smaller predators to remain in the shadows and just, be as hidden as possible. The more significant rivals for the Indominus rex within this region would be our classic Allosaurus and our underrated Torvosaurus, both of which starred in hit documentary Dinosaur Revolution, which that was a great show. Europe's Allosaurus measured an average of 7.6 meters or 25 feet in length, stood around 2.4 meters or 8 feet, and weighed in at around 2.5 tons. With this smaller size, at least compared to the Indominus, it was a highly successful predator, with its speed being integral for it. Then we have Torvosaurus, the largest predator in its region at the time. It was a massive 10 meters or 33 feet long, 3 meters or 10 feet tall, and could weigh between 4 to 5 tons. Although it was the largest native predator of its area, if it came across the Indominus rex and actually thought to take it on, well, it's not going to go well for it. The Indominus is still twice as heavy, nearly twice as tall, and durable enough to take bites from Rexy as well as gunfire. So in direct conflict, this would easily go into the Indom's favour. Still though, the fact that these predators are actually more sizable means that they could poach prey items from the Indominus rex. It wouldn't be hard for the Indominus rex to get them out of the area, giving it a score of 8 out of 10. So in this scenario, the Indominus rex would be a bit unfamiliar with its surroundings. As before, I think its first portion of time would be taking down a number of different dinosaurs, where it would first be seeing the smaller and more swift prey options such as Dryosaurus. Dracopelta, although armored, was just too small to shrug off the attacks. I think that wherever the Indominus rex is, Dracopeltas would go extinct. Larger herbivores like the Stegosaurids could initially cause the Indominus rex a bit of issues, but just like many of its other experiences, it would be like the Divine General and adapt. The Indominus rex would sort of base its hunting off what it did with the Ankylosaurus, learning to outmaneuver and overpower the Stegosaurids. Even if a hit was landed, I just don't believe that the Thagomizer would deliver critical enough damage to take down this giant theropod. Even massive sauropods like Lacertidon, while formidable and still dangerous, would not be safe. The Indominus rex could easily target smaller or weaker individuals and just overpower it with its brute strength. As for the adults, well, again, she did take down an adult Brachiosaurus, but it was eating and distracted. I think that it's fair to argue that the Indominus rex can take down a giant sauropod, but if they were in a herd, I think that they would be too overwhelming, and a singular Indominus rex would learn quickly not to blindly hunt the adults, otherwise they could very easily be trampled or worse. Competition in the region, particularly from Allosaurus and Torvosaurus, would present an indirect challenge over resources. It would be indirect because Allosaurus and Torvosaurus would realize that, hey, it's probably not a good idea to try to fight an 8-ton hybrid. Instead, they'd be taking down prey options or just leave the areas entirely. To avoid overhunting, she'll need to utilize her intelligence to realize that within the food chain, things work differently and there is not endless amounts of food, thus giving the Indominus rex a survival score of 8.5 out of 10. The biggest issues that she would have to face is the fact that the larger carnivores in the area could be fast enough to avoid her, while still taking down the food options that she would be required to survive. So with the ecosystem of Jurassic's Portugal decimated by the same beast, it's now time to put the Indominus rex into a new arena, one where the competition would be much more intense and the prey far more formidable. Welcome to North America's Cretaceous period, specifically the late Cretaceous in what is now known as the United States. During the late Cretaceous period, the environment would again be different from earlier periods. The region would now be covered by forests, coastal floodplains, and feature a warm and humid climate. The temperature would now reach around 35 degrees Celsius, with the western interior seaways splitting the continent. continent. It was a time filled with abundant food sources and some of the most well-equipped dinosaurs to ever evolve. But as for the environment aspect, the Indominus Rex is far more suited for this area, and I would give it a 9 out of 10. This is now a very comfortable environment for it. I think that this is one of the few times where the herbivores of the past would present a very true challenge for the Indominus Rex. Of course, the smaller ones such as the ornithomimids and pachycephalosaurs will not pose too much of an issue, as more or less they would rely on their speeds to avoid the Indominus Rex, and again, as this rotating cycle goes, the Indominus Rex uses its camouflage to sneak up on them. But as for the larger herbivores, I think that we have to start off with the one that the Indominus Rex has dealt with in the past. Reaching around 6 meters or 20 feet long and weighing in at around 5 tons, this dinosaur was a walking fortress. This being, of course, Allosaurus. Its thick bony armor made it resistant to attacks, and its massive club tail could deliver quite a devastating blow, with some estimates suggesting it could swing at forces of around 25,000 newtons. I think the real game changer with this matchup is that the Indominus Rex has dealt with the Ankylosaur in the past, and not only dealt with, but tanked a hit to its own jaw by an Ankylosaur that was several tons heavier than our accurate ones. I think that the fact that it was able to not only tank a hit, survive the hit, and flip a heavy Ankylosaur would mean that if these two had a matchup, well then things won't end well for our real deal. Now moving on to the larger Montosaurus, this thing was underrated as it was massive. It grew to around 12 meters or 40 feet and could weigh in at around 5 to 7 tons in weight, with some potentially reaching up to 15 tons. Although they may have lacked the traditional armor and weaponry as the Triceratops or Ankylosaurs, they made up for this as they likely had herding behavior, would have a high amount of stamina, and were heavy enough to give them the advantage against predators. With this, I think that the Indominus Rex could indeed deal with the 5 to even 9 ton hadrosaurs, but it gets a bit more difficult when we start to bring up the 15 ton ones, as they would be far more dangerous and could severely injure the Indominus Rex if they would slam the entirety of their weight into her. Think of them like giant meats. They were massive, powerful, and they're not always just going to run away. Moving on to the most iconic of the herbivores, we have the Triceratops, measuring around 9 meters or 30 feet long and weighing in at around 6 to even 12 tons. With 3 horns and a solid frill for frontal protection, it was a formidable opponent for any predator to take down. Direct conflict with the full-grown Triceratops would be more than risky, and the easiest way to take it down would be by utilizing its camouflage to get behind it. It would need to ensure that it's isolated and ending the battle before the Triceratops could do anything. At last, I've decided to throw in the Allosaurus, although there is a debate of the overlapping ecosystems. This was a sauropod that reached over 26 meters or 85 feet in length and stood over 11 meters or 36 feet in height. They also wrap it up by weighing over 50 tons in weight, making it the largest dinosaur in North America. This would be the last resort for even Tyrannosaurus Rex to take on. So as for the Indominus Rex, I think it just really depends. We've seen an aftermath of a rampage against a herd of apatosaurs, as well as taking down the Brachiosaurus. But again, we don't exactly see what went down here. We don't know if the herbivores tried to fight back or anything. As for the Brachiosaurus, it sort of just fell down. So I think even isolated, a 50-ton Allosaurus would be too much for even this hybrid to take down, let alone the probable chance that they moved around in herds. As for prey, I would give the Indominus Rex a score of 7 out of 10, as although there are a lot of large prey options for them to take down, they are all equally as dangerous, especially when you compare them to many of the Jurassic or Triassic herbivores and omnivores. But here is where the real test begins. Throughout this whole technical gauntlet run, the Indominus Rex has been able just to plow through every single carnivore without too much issue. So, does it change here? Well, we start off with the debated Dakota Raptor, which, who knows if that existed or not. This was a 5.5 meter or 18 foot dromaeosaur that was built quite robustly, having the weaponry to cause quite a bit of damage on their chosen prey items. But when you throw the Indominus Rex in the picture, they pale in comparison. I personally think that in this environment, they would more or less play a role like vultures, trying to scavenge off all the free corpses around due to the Indominus Rex's presence. Also, given that the Dakota Raptor was more likely a solo hunter, I don't see a scenario where they would even try to contest the Indominus Rex. Hypothetically, if they did start moving in packs, well, they could technically be more confident in doing so and deliver a bit more damage, as we did see that the Raptor squad was able to cut into the Indominus Rex. It would not end well for them. So now we will cover the I.rex's biggest competitor, and definitely the one that you've all been waiting for, Tyrannosaurus Rex. This theropod easily reached over 12 meters or 40 feet in length, with the largest estimates being able to stand at 4.5 meters or 15 feet. They also weighed in at an average of 9 tons. We can't forget that there are also specimens which suggest weights of 10 to even 11 tons. Equipped with a bite force stronger than any known terrestrial animal, it could even reach between 18,000 to 61,000 newtons. Bear in mind that Jurassic Park's Rexy had a bite force of around 34,000 newtons, so the real deal's bite would be around 80% stronger. Feeling its massive jaws were teeth that were both designed to crush bone while also being slightly serrated. It is also important to note that anatomically speaking, when we compare Rex's teeth to the real deal, it is clear that Rex's teeth were not well formed, being thinner and more knife-like, which would reduce the transferable force. And yet, Rexy was still tearing into the Indominus Rex, causing a lot of damage. And if you've seen a bit of an older video covering my opinion on Rexy versus a peak accurate Rex, you know that my stance is siding with the real deal. But when it comes to the Indominus Rex, things get especially spicy in a real world scenario where it's not always going to be the peak specimen. I think the Indominus Rex could definitely handle Rexes reaching around the 9-ton range. It is important to note that the Indominus Rex itself has a weaker bite force than Rexy, who has a weaker bite force than accurate T-Rexes, and T-Rexes are known to be able to survive bites from other Tyrannosaurs. However, despite being an interesting battle, I think that with the Indominus Rex's number of advantages including speed, height, as well as just overall brute force, I could see her overpowering a lot of the smaller Rexes. This would give an ultimate score of 7 out of 10 against other competition, as although she has the advantage against smaller predators as well as an average Rex, the T-Rexes still pose a significant enough threat to cause mortal injuries as well as challenge her over food and territory. In this scenario, I think that the Indominus Rex is pretty much taking on the ultimate test of survival, showing her adaptability, intelligence, and skill. We saw that she's easily adaptable, as she lived in a cage her entire life and was able to quickly adapt to Nublar's ecosystem. Initially, I think that she would test her strength against some of the lesser equipped herbivores like Edmontosaurs, where I could see her using her camouflage to sneak up on them before charging out and startling them, and it could even cause a sort of King Kong-esque rampage where the hadrosaurs cause a lot of damage to themselves due to running away. I think she would sort of realize after dealing with a large Edmontosaur that it might not be the smartest thing to always take down the biggest target. Soon though, familiar faces would emerge, such as the Ankylosaur with its bone-shattering club. While the Indominus Rex has faced one before, she would still have to approach a prey option like this hesitantly. I think she would really only target Ankylosaurs out of moments of pure aggression or when food options were rather low. The real challenge would come in when she encounters groups of Triceratops, because technically, although there is debate on the group work of these animals, there's still evidence to show that they did indeed move in small groups. With their weight possibly exceeding the Indominus Rex itself, a frontal attack would honestly be the dumbest thing that she can do. She would learn that rather than charging head on, it would be better to await for the perfect moment to strike, ambushing from behind, using her speed to quickly take them down. And as far as Allosaurus would go, I think it would be like the Titan, with only adults being targeted if she was desperate. With the even larger weight of the Allosaurus in comparison to the Titan, the Indominus Rex is not standing a chance. Though herbivores aren't the only threat, as when she becomes more familiar with her environment, she would likely cross paths with other predators like the Dakota Raptor. They would stand no chance against an Indominus Rex. I think an interesting adaptation may take place, but I'll wait to cover that until after. Then we have the native Tyrannosaurus Rex, which poses the greatest challenge. Unlike her previous encounters, the T-Rex has the sheer size and power to match her in conflict. Although admittedly most Tyrannosaurs would avoid confrontation with such an aggressive dinosaur, or due to the Indominus' experience with Rexy, she decides to be very aggressive against this species. In this case, the T-Rex would hold the advantage when it comes to bite force and mass, but the Indominus Rex does have speed, durability, arm use, and height in its advantage. A rather large Rex could easily hold off this hybrid and possibly even emerge victorious due to its very high bite force. Although she is durable, she's not impervious. She was taking injuries from Rex's weaker bites, and she was also taking injuries from the Velociraptor squad. Although you can argue for the gunfire, you can't argue that a weaker T-Rex's bite, as well as the Velociraptors, could output more damage than a peak Tyrannosaur. This could go either way, and realistically, the larger Tyrannosaur would more likely back off due to the aggressive nature of the Indominus Rex. If you would want to debate from a fight to the end against a peak Tyrannosaurus Rex and an Indominus Rex, well then comment that below. Though with her introduction, I think something interesting would occur. I believe that pairs of Tyrannosaurs would start to remain together more permanently and create more distinct family units. This would be a behavioral shift driven by the sheer threat the Indominus Rex poses on the ecosystem. While facing one Tyrannosaurus Tyrannosaurus is doable, facing 2 or more adults would definitely be a different story. And this is where I think that her aggressiveness would sort of be snapped out of her, as she would finally be face to face with a conflict that she could clearly not win. In order to combat this, there is the possibility that the Indominus Rex could sort of pull out what she did in Jurassic World, this being forcing the raptors to be on her side, creating a small unit of her own. Could this help in every scenario against the T-Rexes? Probably not, because the Dakotaraptors are still animals and they're not going to be particularly doing the biggest amount of damage against an adult Tyrannosaurus Rex. Although saying that she's going to group up with the Dakotaraptors is definitely a bit of a leap, and we're not even sure if she'd be able to communicate with them at all. Overall though, in this environment, the Indominus Rex will need to outwit her competition and learn to lower her aggression if she wants to survive in this ecosystem. Ultimately, I would give the Indominus Rex a survival score of 7.7 out of 10. It is certainly easily doable for her, the main issue being it's one of her against a variety of full populations of species that are equally as potent to her as she is to them. To wrap this up, I think it's clear the Indominus Rex pretty much has every stat cranked up to 11. I think that the Jurassic period would be the best time period for her to survive in, as the carnivores would not be large enough to pose a threat to her, and there'll be plenty enough herbivores that she could survive off with relatively low to mid difficulty. Now, if you were wondering at all how breeding populations of Indominuses would do, the Mesozoic would not stand a chance against a group of Indoms. Anyways though, we've reached the end of the video and I hope you've all enjoyed. Make sure to like and subscribe and comment down below what you'd like to see next. I'll catch you all next time, see ya.